Bienvenidos a CO. Buenas tardes. Good afternoon. Es una inmensa alegría compartir con ustedes este momento. Y la verdad, quisiera expresar mi agradecimiento a Hansi y a todos los compañeros, amigos de la práctica.
Hola, hola.
De conocer
I'm thankful to everybody from Hansi and the practice of Mahum. We are all of us practitioners, companions in this path. And today I will want to treat the psycho-neuro-immuno-endocrinological implications of mind-body medicines and its relationship with practice of Gwan. And the title of my work says it all. If you hold on, you die. If you let go, you live. This phrase pronounced by Master Teheng to indicate that there are basically two ways to respond to the circumstances and challenges that arise in our daily lives. And both answers depends on the way we perceive and create thought. That is, the way we process information. In the first case, if you hold, it refers to a way of responding from a conditioned mental state of clinging, holding, and insecure attachment, in which a strong sense of duality and separation and differentiation between subject and object at the cognitive level stands out, and a backdrop of anxiety, greed, fear, and rejection on an affective and emotional level. This response model creates a stress or suffering in the mind-body system with negative repercussions at the psychic, neurological, immunological, endocrine, and epigenetic levels. In the second case, if you let go, it refers to a way of responding from a mental state in which everything is trusted and released to the fundamental mind, in which the dissolution of all kinds of dualities stands out, eliminating any sense of separation between subject and object, and on the emotional and affective level, a background of trust, gratitude, acceptance, joy, and compassion. This response model creates a generalized and deep relaxation response in the mind-body system, and a state of unification that Master Teheng calls the state of Hammam, with positive preventive and regenerative repercussions at the psychic, neurological, immunological, endocrine, and epigenetic levels. We will now briefly review some fundamental concepts about stress and how we see the all-integrated system, and a review about the different kinds of meditations and the cognitive elements involved, and what it is about the methodology of Gwan and its effects in our body and health. The stress syndrome, the syndrome of adaptation, as said by Hans Selye in the 1940s. He conducted experiments with animals and could identify three stages. The first one, alarm. The second one, resistance. The third, exhaustion. In the first stage, he saw a reduction of the thymus and lymph nodes, in the appearance of ulcers in the gastric mucosa. Then, if there was stress going on these animals, they pass to the stage of resistance, hypertrophy of the adrenal and thyroid glands, and the gonadal hypertrophy. And with more stress, these animals reached the stage of exhaustion, ultimately leading to their death. Stress is a global psychobiological response of an individual to a stimulus, external or internal, biological, physical, chemical, psychological, which can be real or imaginary, that are perceived as harm or loss, a threat or a challenge. Here you have a chart when you can see that external requirements and internal requirements and the resources that we have, external and internal. In our case, the cognitive resources, and those who are practitioners have, in face of conflicts, a certain response. The stress response is related to life itself. When it becomes pathological due to the intensity of the stress, we have this curve, and we can see the relationship between the modulation of stress and the performance of eustress. And this enhances our performance. In this sense, is vital, the stress. But when it overcomes our capacity to bear it, it becomes pathological. And what is distress, the pathological stress? It's similar to the previous definition of stress, but it is a global psychobiological response of an individual to a stimulus, external or internal, biological, physical, chemical, or psychological, real or imaginary, that surpasses its intensity or the duration of the capacity, personal and current adaptation to it, giving as a result a pathological process. We can define it into words. It occurs when our ability to bear it surpasses, and this activates our response to stress. We have two moments, which is precognitive, and the other one cognitive. The precognitive is unconscious, is an automatic response, and it is related to subcortical areas. The attention focuses these events. What considers vital, and this sensorial response activates the thalamus and coordinates all our survival responses. And this unleashes our physiological response. And this goes from affects our adrenaline or cortisol levels. And then we have the cortical response. And we became aware of the situation, of the threat. And we have the two stages of assessment. The first one, assess the demands. Do I have to do I have to stay here? And the second stage, and which are the recourses that I have? Cognitive, physical resources. If I have savings in the bank or not, or I'm suffering from a disease or not. And then some mechanisms to response are selected within the resources available. And we have the physiological response, neuroendocrinological responses, and this generates a synergy between what is cognitive and precognitive. The concept of stress has evolved. At first it was very limited, and it highlighted the concept of homeostasis, which is to maintain a certain kind of balance. But then the researchers realized that this is related to allostasis. And this allows us to adapt and regulate our physiological systems and coordinates all our physiological responses and the responses to stress. One example here is very well known. A person eats many carbohydrates, and his organism has problems with the receptors of insulin. And then there is a resistance to insulin, and this creates problems in the pancreatic system. In order to be in this stability, is what we call allostatic load, which is the biological cause accumulated over time by the chronic use of allostatic adaptations. For example, the diminishing capacity of the receptors of insulin. In this chart, you can view the integration of allostatic systems and its damaging consequences to our health. The psychological stress, the psychological, social resources, and aging, and how we cope with all of this. It depends on our DNA in our genotype. And this focus on the psycho-neuro-immuno-endocrinology and how it regulates these systems, the psychological, neurological, immunological, and endocrinological systems. We have been talking about interconnected existence and the paradigm, and there are different views of the cerebral responses, and we are now talking about some kind of network, brain networks, that it's known. Some parts of our brain response, but the brain as a whole system. And then we go to the stage of integration and how we respond to stress. How do they communicate? we have this psychological aspect, and we have the words. In face of an event, I define how to define the situation, if it is a threat or not. In our practice of Gwan, of introspection, before a conflict, some Master Heng says that we must take it as our tool to practice. And then we realize this is a manifestation of our essence or the fundamental mind. And with all the resources we have in our essence, the situation can be changed into something positive and valuable to our life. In the neurological system, we have neurotransmitters, and they are not confined to the nervous system. And then we have the lymphocytes, which have receptors to neurotransmitters, and the endocrinological system. And then we have the immune system, which communicate with cytokines, which can be some can enhance inflammation and some can calm them. And it is related to the specific level of certain functions. And we have the hormones, which activates the hypothalamus, hypophysis, and adrenal system. And they provide the glucose to the brain, and this raises the level of glucose on. And that there are a complex system which intermodulates each one another. And about the immunological system, we can divide in two responses: the specific response and the inspecific response. There are certain cells in our body which responds the inflammation or the invasion, the monocytes, the neutrophils and macrophages, which responds specifically to all threat that invades the organism. And then we have the specific immunity provided by lymphocytes. And these produce an immunodepression. The use of cortisol is used as an immunosuppressor.
Vamos a entrar a ver el tema de las distintas prácticas meditativas.
And we are going to discuss about different types of meditations in the cognitive level. This is a classification where we have different types of meditations. Attentional family is the first group, constructive family the second, and deconstructive group the third. In attentional family, we have two groups: the focused attention and open monitoring. And two elements are very important: attention, the consciousness of realizing what is being perceived by the individual. And this is a very important meta-conscious element, as I discussed with Professor Che. This is the way that the person can detach from emotional conflicts and observe what happens with calm and without attachments. In the constructive family, we observe and create a certain kind of a thought. It's a re-evaluation or reassessment of the situation. We change our point of view and modify our schema. And this changes our relationship with other people. It and produces changes in our values, or it is oriented to our self-perception. And the deconstructive family is about self-inquiry to gain insight into the nature and dynamic of conscious experience. It's aimed to undo maladaptive cognitive patterns by exploring the dynamics of perception. And we have the non-dual practices, which aims in non-dual practices with the self-inquiry. We go beyond the self. There is no separation between the individual and the object. And these are the brain areas involved in meditation. And the drawing provides a schematic representation of the main areas involved in the control and attention, in the regulation of the emotion and the cognition itself. Now, let's go to the practice of Gwan. We can observe that I chose 4 points of different parts of the practice. The first one, and fundamental, in my opinion, is faith or trust in our fundamental mind on Chewing Gong, is letting go in Chewing Gong every conflict that we face in our daily lives, and keep watching and observing the mind and the creation of Maum or thought. The Korean word Gwan means to look, observe, be aware, or mindful. And Chewing Gong refers to our fundamental mind, Buddha nature, the originally awakened condition of mind, or Maum. Chewing means true owner or true doer. And Gong, emptiness, not because it is nothing, but because it manifests and changes continuously from moment to moment without ever being fixed. And the foundation of this practice is to create a total faith, unconditional faith in our fundamental mind or Chewing Gong. The essence of this faith is faith in our own essence, which is based on the Maum principle, which is the total conviction and certainty that our Maum is intrinsically Buddha, that we are Buddha, and there is nothing that does not have this nature, that every phenomenon is constantly arising from there and returning there. Therefore, it has full capacity to respond to everything that arises. This faith in our fundamental mind naturally comes and clears the vision, perception, because it dissolves all ignorance, all attachment, and any idea that there is fixed self or something fixed, any idea of duality, allows us to see things as they are without any prejudice. And this reveals the original state of Han-Maum, where everything is connected and functions as one. And this phase in Maum is a natural function of our fundamental mind, or Han-Maum. The key to the practice is trust, faith in our chewing gum. Because without it, we cannot let go, we cannot open our inner eye of the Maum, and we cannot return to our Han-Maum, which is our essence. And what does this phase consist? It's a total certainty that originally I am Buddha, and that all living beings share the same Buddha nature. This is true phase because it is non-dual and non-regressive, because it is based on our unborn, ever-attained eternal reality. This non-dual phase is equivalent to directly realizing our original Maum. This true phase is a state of certainty or resolve that keeps us firmly rooted in practice. It is standing confidently, and this is the difference with our teachings, which remain only in the theoretical level. The faith, which flows with the practice, and is to have a conviction, a state of clarity, serenity, non-duality and freedom. And this true faith is a natural and inherent condition of our essence. It's not the result of the thought of the discriminating mind. It originates from our original Maum, which is prior to the rising of thought. A quality that pervades the entire Maum and manifests itself in everything in our daily lives. This is why this is said that there are no reasons to let go. That is, letting go without conditions. If there were certain conditions or reason to let go, it would not be spontaneous letting go, something that arises from faith. It will be false, artificial, arising from beliefs based on greed or fear. And the mind that expects something in return is a mind that discriminates, which is an illusory duality onto the unique reality that is non-dual, and which is suchness, that identifies with a false self and limits itself by saying it is an unenlightened being. And this is what not allows the manifestation of our true self. This is a very important point, because many people discuss about faith. How can I have faith? I'm from Argentina. When I viewed or watched the Dharma talks, I could see how many people questioned her about faith, but it doesn't come from outside. It's something within us. As she said, we are already Buddha. We have the certainty that, and if we know that we are inherently Buddha, that's all. There is nothing to gain, nothing to let go, and this is the non-dual faith. If we live our daily life based on this faith, everything that we do becomes Dharma, because this is a true faith, which is non-dual, unshakable, and everything is in our original Maum. But there are different levels of faith, and depends on the level of practice. So there are different methods of practice. But everything resumes into letting go, returning all things within ourselves, and all the good things and the bad things. and to let go with gratitude, with trust. And we know that everything will get solved. And if it doesn't get solved, we will have to accept that there is a reason.
Pero el fundamento, como decimos,
The
es esta
fundament is to let go, return everything to our inner essence over and over again with our maum to our chewing gum. Although it is said that we have to let go within ourselves or return all things within ourselves, chewing gum is neither outside nor inside. It's a combination of all things in the universe. And it existed before all these things. It is a true owner and maker that is empty. What is this empty where we let go? Is a place where all lives manifest and transform from moment to moment and function interconnected and combined as one. The self is included there and is also empty. There is nothing that can be added or subtracted from the void. Everything works according to the principle of emptiness, and everything is manifesting from moment to moment, including oneself. Therefore, in life, inherently, everything is being letting go spontaneously, since this principle of emptiness is inherent to Han Maum, is the natural freedom of our original Maum, or mind. And there is no such a thing as holding or letting go, because there is nothing that really exists, nor even a self. Therefore, there is nothing to be freed from, or no self to be freed. Is to advance, as says by some Master De Heng, without taking our footprints with us. Or it is like to wanting to ride in the water. Estamos pasando del tiempo. Si puede. Estamos pasando del tiempo. Estamos pasando del tiempo, así que se puede resumir y concluir, por favor.
아니요. 지금 마치지 말고 요약을 조금 해서 좀 시간을 조금만 드릴게요.
Can you provide some summarized version, maybe then?
Shortly, please. Yeah.
Entonces la vida sería imposible sin este soltar en el vacío.
And life would be impossible without letting go. And if we detach from our thoughts, and we can understand this present principle in our life, it be all. So the practice of Gwan is present in the three meditative families, in the attentional, the constructive, and the constructive, producing psychobiological changes. And the Gwan regulates the attention, the creativity, and regulates and relaxes the release oxytocin and vasopressin, and decreases
cambios en las ondas cerebrales se han estudiado también, que han mejorado y han aparecido la relación onda zeta-alfa disminuido y en forma inmediata.
The psychological effects of Gwan practice have a cognitive effects and emotional effects, and the neurogenesis, the capacity to create new neurons. And in this picture, you can be the neurogenesis regions of the brain. And this is connected with the re-recording of Gwan, practice.
Y a nivel endocrino, bueno,
And
regula tanto el circuito del estrés,
in the
regula
endocrine effects of Gwan practice, we have a irregular stress circuit regulating the CRH, ACTH adrenal axis, regulates the release of oxytocin and vasopressin, decreases hyperinsulinemia caused by increased blood glucose due to high cortisol, and increase the telomere length and slow down the epigenetic clock of our organism.
El telómero protege el envejecimiento celular y también un enlentecimiento en el reloj epigenético, que es unos nuevos descubrimientos en cuanto a que la vida, la prolongación de la vida es un reloj que lo marca con más exactitud que el mismo telómero.
This telomere length is increased. And thank you very much.
Thank you for your excellent presentation. 네, 감사드립니다.
So thank you very much for excellent presentation. We are actually behind the schedule, but if you have questions, we would like to entertain some questions, though we are constrained by time. So if you do have questions, please raise your hand.
네, 안녕하세요.
So good afternoon. I am the member of the Hanmaum Science Center. My name is Lee Jun-yeop.
아까 관수행
You talked about the Gwan practice and how it affects the brain and induces brain changes. And in our medical team, we also checked the brain wave. So we did the brain wave scan. So in terms of the changes in brain and brain wave, if you can elaborate on that, we will highly appreciate that. And also in our medical team, because we belong to the Hanmaum Science Center and we have conducted the various researches. So if you're interested, then maybe we can have some partnership and have joint research activities.
Dentro de las conclusiones, la gran maestra siempre habló.
So Master Deng always said that when we let go, we record this information. And with the latest discoveries about the neuronal plasticity or neurogenesis, we have new neurons of stem cells in the region of hippocampus, which are related to memory and emotions. And this is a proof of the biological proof of this re-recording process. In the favored conditions, we have this neurogenesis occurring in our brains, and to traumatic memories are modified by new neurons. So we can prove that the process of re-recording taught by Master Deng is true and is occurring in our biological organism.
네, 한 번만 더 질문
We'll
받겠습니다.
take one more question.
Thank you for your good presentation for about psycho-neuro-immuno-endocrinology change and effect. But I want to know, it's a simple question. If those who have suffering come to you, what kind of words would you give them at first among words of Daeheng S님?
Could you repeat the question, please?
Repeat the question.
Yes.
Yes.
If those who have suffering come to you,
Sí.
what kind of word would you give them at first? Among words of 대행 스님.
Bueno,
Sí,
como previo a la palabra
Before words
está la fe.
comes the faith.
Sin la fe, sin la
Without
confianza en
it
nuestra
and
esencia,
trust
la palabra está vacía.
on our
No
essence,
tiene la
I
fuerza de
think that
transformación.
words
Desde esa fe,
are
nuestra
absent of
esencia,
meaning.
cambiamos el significado,
So we
dándole
are
otra
the
posibilidad a
one
la
who
existencia, que no sea
produces
sufrimiento.
these changes,
Cuando ya el
and
sufrimiento no se ve
suffering
como sufrimiento,
is not perceived anymore as such.
ya también la causa se extingue,
In this
la
way,
cesación se extingue.
the cause of suffering is annihilated,
Y surge por lo que verdaderamente es. Por eso el problema
and
aquí, la
we can
cuestión,
see the suchness of the reality.
como dijo la gran maestra, acá la única transgresión es la
As
ignorancia.
said by Sir Master Heng, the only problem we have
¿Qué es lo
is
que ignoramos?
ignorance. And what
En el
do
Sutra
we
del Corazón
ignore? And
Está
the
muy claro por qué
Heart
sufrimos,
Sutra,
¿no? Porque no
we
sabemos
have
que
the,
somos un maún en común,
the response,
vida
the
en
answer,
común,
because we don't know
un
that
alimentar
we
en
are
común, un funcionamiento en común.
life in common, functioning in common, and body in
Eso
common,
Es
a mom in common.
equivalente al desconocer eso, proyectamos un yo
So
fijo,
we create the figure of
que se
self,
siente agredido, que se tiene que defenderse.
which is attacked
¿No? Ese es
or
el principio del no
which
yo. Y lo otro que
sense
ignoramos, el principio del
the
vacío,
menace.
que todo se está
And
transformando y
we
cambiando instante
are
en instante.
ignorant of the principle of
Cuando,
voidness.
gracias al soltar,
And thanks
revertir,
to letting go
comprendemos este
and
principio del
return
no yo y el
everything
vacío,
to our essence,
todo se
we
libera
can
y
understand
todo fluye
that
tal
everything
cual es.
finally
Al ver las cosas tal cual
flows
son,
as it is,
se elimina el
and we can
sufrimiento.
see the suchness of the reality without any suffering existing.
Thank you.